compare the myths of the antiquity and all as the characters of fiction that we have nowadays and they're trendy, like Harry Potter of the Avengers, or this kind of characters. And well, when you were telling this, one question came up to my mind, and the myths of the past have not only this kind of fiction characteristic, but also this property of putting the community together, like build an identity, an own identity to the community, and link all the people that were in the community. And it's something that this kind of new myths, we'll say, cannot do. So what is your interpretation of this kind of phenomenon that it's happening nowadays?
Well, okay, so I think I would have to say, well, no, that's fine. I think it's like the one something that, say, traditional religions or mythologies have is and sort of, say, a spontaneous development that we can't even trace. They're extremely, extremely old. They had to be handed down through an oral tradition, and so there are ways in which they became more and more and more sophisticated throughout the years. But it's clear that the things that are happening now, say with superhero movies or Harry Potter, they don't have the deeper foundations built into their own manner of perpetuating themselves. But it's not clear that they're not. I would say that maybe they are starting to build up a sense of community. I mean, you can see things like this. I mean, comic books and stuff like that have conventions, and people organize their lives around Comic-Con in San Diego. There was I recall reading a newspaper article maybe just a month ago on teenagers or people in their early 20s now who were the first generation of readers of Harry Potter, and they think that Harry Potter has still been the thing that sort of oriented them as they grew, and that now then they're in their mid-20s and they still, like, I don't know, dress up in Harry Potter clothes, and they associate the construction of their identity specifically around the passion with which they lived Harry Potter when they were young. It might seem more superficial, but it might be the same kind of process. I don't know if you want to respond. What?
Well, I agree with you at some extent, but it's like some kind of, let's see, freak people in some way, or there's no something to spread or to trendy or to mainstream, as it were, the myths in the past, as it was the function in the myths. Well, I can understand you, because the values, not only the character, the most superficial character, like is a wizard with glasses and with a scar here in his face, or a man with a shield of colors. Well, this is the most superficial one, and I can agree with you that all the values that they transmit are the, let's say, the mainstream values of our society, and they get in some way legitimated through these histories. But in a more superficial way, I think it's not so spread or so mainstream, and well, maybe some people can identify themselves, but I don't see it so.
Yeah, but I mean,
So huge.
there it becomes an issue of anthropology, right? I mean, you have to think of. I guess I would think of how small individual tribes were in the past, and how there had to be a process of amalgamation of tribes and incorporation of tribes into a bigger identity and so on in the past, and it's something that took a very, very, very long time. And now we live in a time where, I mean, we actually get to create our own identities and our own society through our electronic devices. So, I mean, the number of identities that we're actually free to create virtually is unlimited, and we don't have the external pressure from the real world that forces us to conform within from a larger group that we don't really have control over. So I mean, maybe we shouldn't be looking for exactly the same kind of parallels in terms of scope, because we don't have to find the acceptance from the outside world in the same way anymore. We can create our own virtual identity to a very large extent, without saying that it's exactly that you can. I think you can't compare the scope of. I think it's obvious that you can't compare the scope of traditional actual mythology from current cultural products.
Yeah, just Brian, don't you think this is one of the defining features of postmodernism, that we go from a stage in which we are denouncing these grand narratives of the past to another stage in which we are constructing our own personal narratives, our own personal myths, and we are free to share it in a group online, or we can move to another group if we want to do that. Isn't that a very big difference? I mean, comparing to what was going on with modernism, for example, attempting to shatter all those traditional myths about what reality was, what it looked like, how it was supposed to be conceived by everybody. Don't you think that's a big shift?
But I think to a certain extent one of the things I find interesting in Peterson and other people like Peterson, because really Peterson is just talking about is a way of saying what Carl Jung would have said, is that no matter what the superficial level looks like, and no matter what we think we're doing consciously, the patterns underneath are actually the same. So we're not moving in a certain extent. We're moving beyond things in a conscious sense, but we're actually reenacted. The patterns of action are actually very similar. The psychological process is the same one.
Is that until we become post-human, or?
I think when we become post-human, we won't exist, actually.
Okay.
I don't think we'll actually be here. I think the machines will be.
Take over.
Well, not that they won't just take over. But anyway, that's a different conference, I think.
Well, probably, yes. An interesting topic for a conference.
Right.
Do we have any more questions for Maya or for Brian?
Yes. Firstly, I would like to say thank you to the two of you for the super presentations, okay, because I have been listening what you have said. I have to recognize that Maya's topic is still far away from my field of expertise. But anyway, I have enjoyed it. And as for Brian, you have presented something quite, I don't know how to say, curious in a sense, because you have presented like two main streams in the sense of Peterson way of seeing reality, which focuses mainly on the idea of religion, okay, on the one hand, and I forgot it. Religion and science. Sorry, I was thinking about another thing. Okay, religion and science. So I was thinking about, the very first humans. Now that we are speaking about post-human humanism, wherever, okay, yes, the other way around. Inside the cave, okay, I was there with the first humans, and suddenly the storm, and suddenly thunder, and suddenly fire. Okay, how can I explain that? It's not going to be through science, not yet. It's not going to be through religion, not yet. Why? Because there is another stream which has not been mentioned, which is magic.
Which is? Sorry?
Magic.
Magic.
So it's the third one, and he doesn't include the magic in at least in his proposal, I guess. So magic comes before that, because we need that part of magic to start. Just if we want to present religion, we need to fill the gap, and before science comes into the party, we need just that kind of magic, and then we can speak about, I don't know, our Scandinavian friends, about Thor or whoever, right? But what about magic? Maybe it's not a question for you, it's for Pittance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think, I mean, I think maybe there would be something like, I mean, there are possibly two related concepts of what a god might be. I mean, there are two different ways of talking about it. One would be something like gods are just those things that we can't understand at all. And it's some sort of representation that we have of something that we can't, that's defined by some property, but it's just that which we do not know, right? And that might be the domain for magic. I mean, where the gap between what we understand and what we experience is so wide that the stuff in the middle is basically magic, right? But a more evolved concept of what I guess what he's saying. So when you start getting more evolved concepts of deities, so say specifically like even like what Buddha is, or what the concept of a Judeo-Christian God, that this is a concept that's even more advanced. It's a very complex concept that's even more advanced. But I'm not sure what to say about magic specifically. Huh.
I think it's a question for
Hmm.
for you. I think that there is a gap in that study, and it's the third step, which is magic. But anyway, it's my personal.
Right.
Okay, any further questions? Does anyone else want to say anything before we move on to the next session? I don't know, maybe I have another thing for just a short one for Maya. Annie Proulx, did she declare at any stage in her career or in her personal life or in her correspondence that she set out to shatter myths and archetypes, or is it something that she is perceived to be doing by many scholars in general?
No, not really. I mean, and this is, similarly, often people ask me when I talk about Annie Proulx and this naturalism I see in her works. It's the same thing. People ask me if she ever declared she's a naturalist and that her works are naturalistic. No, and the same here. No, not really. She just observes. She somehow employs, but this something that I understand is a naturalistic method. She observes this real life, and this is how she describes it. And well, generally, it's ugly. It's dirty. It's full of, deviations, sexual deviations, and but it's just like this. This is how she sees it. But no, as far as I'm concerned, she's never actually declared that. Well, this is what I do. This is what I wanna crush all these mythic preconceptions, images, etc. Not really.
Mm-hmm. So it's never been a declared aim of hers or anything like that.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay. Thank you very much, Maya. Thank you, Brian, for coming here today. And so we have, I think, maybe just 5 minutes until the next session will begin. Right. Okay, so if they are coming in, we won't even have a break then? Okay, fine.
Thank you.